Hi Queens, Sam here. I hope that you're doing amazing. Today I want to talk about protecting your wealth. Usually when you watch videos or you read articles, blogs about building wealth, most of the time, they're talking about, or I'm talking about, making the money, growing the money, saving the money, investing, all of that. But most of the time we don't talk enough of protecting our wealth, and the reality is like you want to actually protect your wealth because you don't want to be starting from scratch all the time or just be focusing on growing your wealth and then not really covering your bases. In my case, when it comes to protecting my wealth, I'm doing that through insurance. That's one way that I'm doing it, and that's one way, that most people know of when it comes to protecting your wealth. I do believe that insurance most of the time is demonized and overlooked at, and I'm gonna give you, all of the reasons. Sometimes those insurance companies, they can drive you nuts, and that's just the reality of it. But here it is. We all have home insurance, we all have car insurance, and most of the time, well, all of the time, really, we have it because it is mandatory. If you're driving a car without an insurance, well, technically, you can be you're going to be in trouble, if the cop stops you, because since you should have an insurance for your car, not only to protect yourself but also protect, the other person if something was to happen, with your car. And same thing, your house as well. At least here in Canada, it is mandatory for you to have a home insurance. And the reality is like we need to have those insurance in place because most people cannot self-insure. That's just the reality of it. Like, if all of us were millionaires and billionaires, maybe we wouldn't have to have insurance in place because we could pay anything from our pockets. But the majority of people, including myself, as it is right now, don't have the financial means to sustain any losses, the magnitude of losses that you can have, let's say in an accident or like, a house, a home fire, home flood, those type of things. So you need to have insurance in place. Now, people, they might not like it, but they'll still get the home insurance and auto insurance. But then when it comes to their wealth, because nobody really, it's not mandatory, the government doesn't make it mandatory for anyone to get insurance for their own income or their own wealth. But really, you should. In my case, I'm a single mother. I have three young kids. I'm a single income earner. So there is nobody right now that actually is giving me money so I could take care of my kids and take care of myself. If something was to happen to me and my kids are still at a young age, first of all, someone will have to take care of them, physically. And the last thing that I want is to actually literally impose on that person as well to take from their money to take care of my kids. I don't think that is fair. I don't think that is responsible. And so to me, it was really important for me when I had the kids to protect my wealth by having the correct insurance plan in place. So what does that look like? First of all, life insurance. So I had a little bit of life insurance before having the kids, and so I increased that because now I have three young kids. So how much I needed, for myself as a single person with no dependent, definitely has changed now that I have three young kids who depend on me. So I've adjusted that amount of money, and it is a term life insurance that I have. I have also a small universal life in place, and I know there is like a whole debate out there. Term life, universal life, whole life, like, and we're going to talk about it actually on November 22nd. I hope that you have already your pass to the Wealthy Black Women Summit. We have Melissa Prosper who's coming. She's my co host, but she's also an insurance expert. So she's coming to really spill the tea, to tell us what it is exactly, about all of that life insurance. And, is it term? Is it whole life? Is it universal life? I do believe that each type of life insurance has its reason, is raison d'être. However, maybe some, I would say, the majority of life insurance brokers out there, they tend to push universal life or like whole life because that's where they make the bulk of their money. But so me, I have both in place when it comes to term life, to life insurance. I have the term life, which is the biggest coverage that I have, and I also have a small universal life, which is actually the one that I had before the kids. So I just kept it. I reduced how much I'm contributing to it because I had like a huge cash value in there. So I'm literally using from that cash value to pay for the premium, and I'll just let it collapse whenever it collapses. And so that's the first thing. The second way that I'm protecting my wealth is by I have my critical illness insurance in place. Now, we live in Canada. I think I don't, not that I think, but we do have a social, a social safety when it comes to healthcare. Healthcare here is reasonable, is affordable, is accessible because we pay for healthcare through our taxes. It's not like in the U.S. where people can go literally bankrupt for medical expenses. It's not like that here in Canada. And if you're also working for an employer who's offering you healthcare benefits, you can literally most of the time not pay anything from your pocket whenever you have like any healthcare issues. So, however, I do believe that there are certain things that even if you have access to the system, it's still good when it comes to critical illness to have in place. So my critical illness policy covers instances like, if I were to be diagnosed with a cancer, touch on the wood, like any of the, I think it's like 25 specific conditions that, if I were to be diagnosed with that, and then, unfortunately I have to stop working or whatnot, it's one lump sum that they're going to be giving me if I were to be diagnosed with that. So I like that because, again, if something was to happen to me in terms of healthcare issues and I have to stop work, or like, if I had my own business and I cannot work on my business, it would be nice to get that lump sum so I can actually manage my expenses and still provide for myself and my kids. So that's the second thing. The third way that I'm protecting my wealth through insurance is that I have a disability insurance in place. Now, people tend to confuse critical illness and disability. It is not the same thing, right? So, and at the end of the day, they say you have more chances of becoming disabled than actually being dead. So most of the time when we talk about life insurance, people are used to it, but they don't know much about critical illness. They don't know much about disability insurance. And those two, again, you have to assess based on your own situation and see which one you need. Do you need all of them, just two of them, the three of them? It's for yours to actually determine. But in my case, I just felt like I needed actually to have the critical illness as well as the disability insurance. So the disability is essentially will provide the person who's covered a portion of their income if they were to become disabled. So of course there are conditions, and again, I know those insurance companies, they will tend to put things more in their favor. However, I've heard of stories where people really had a disability insurance policy in place, something happened to them, and they were compensated. At the end of the day, we cannot just predict what's going to happen in the future. However, I'm telling myself, first of all, I'm building wealth for myself and my kids, and the last thing that I want is to have to take from that money to cover for any critical illness or disability that I may have, because I have the option to actually get an insurance in place, which costs me money on a monthly basis or yearly, depending on at which frequency I'm paying. However, it's giving me that peace of mind that if something was to happen to me, whether I pass when the kids are still young, I become disabled, I'm diagnosed with a critical illness, I'm going to have that lump sum money, or like that additional income that is going to come to me, or like my kids will get, the beneficiary of my life insurance, they'll get that some, at least, the whomever is their guardian will be able to use for their well-being. And so those are the three ways when it comes to insurance that I have put in place myself to protect my wealth, because at the end of the day, I would like what I'm building to actually go to my heirs and not so much be used for anything that I could have actually not, I could have actually taken some measures against. So like I said, on November 22nd, we're going to be talking more about this, the Wealthy Black Women Summit. It's an online summit. It's for Black women. And this year, the theme is wealth is resistant. So we're going to be talking about, those topics, those financial topics that we don't talk enough of, but then again, are so important for us making sure that we are building wealth in a sustainable way. And insurance is one of those topics. And Melissa, she's coming. She's gonna be co-hosting some of this. She's co-hosting the summit with me, so she will be presenting some of the speakers. But she also has a session of hers, which is about insurance. So if insurance is still like a black box to you, you're still not sure essentially what you need and how much you need. Of course, we're not going to be providing information that's going to be essentially catered to everybody's situation, but you will have at least enough information to determine your next step. And I have people in my life, people who are very intelligent, educated, smart, who don't believe in insurance. They just don't believe. And that is fair. But like I said, in my case, it's a very specific case. I am a single income earner. My kids depend on me. If you are, with a partner, or like, you're living at home and someone else has your back, like if something was to happen, that person will step in. It's very different. In my case, although I hope that my family steps in and take care of my kids, which I'm already hoping they do, like physically and mentally, emotionally, the last thing that I want is to impose on them that financial burden, because it does cost money to raise kids. It does cost money. I know that. I have three young ones that I'm raising right now. And so I don't want to impose that financial burden on someone else, because that can also make, like the relationship between that person and my kids a very difficult relationship. And I want my kids to be loved and cared for, even if I'm not here, but the person is going to be taking care of them. And taking that financial burden aspect, taking care of that upfront right now by having the right insurance in place, to me it's a gift that I'm doing for my kids and that person as well, because it's also a thank you that I'm giving to that person or those persons who are going to step in and help my kids if something was to happen. As far as the life insurance goes, for the critical illness and disability, I'm still alive, but I'm just not able to work. And it'll be nice to actually welcome that additional lump sum or additional income. So let me know in the comment. Tell me, what are the insurance that you have in place right now? Which one you find confusing? Tell me how excited you are also to attend the Wealthy Black Women Summit on November 22nd. I hope you already have your pass. If you don't have it, fear not. I'm gonna put a link in the description below of this video, and let me know in the comment how do you relate with insurance? How does that sound to you? I'm very curious to know. And until next time, keep on building wealth. Bye bye.